Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a book art haul to share with you. If you are new here, my name is Ivu and I make painting videos, mostly with watercolors, but I also sometimes use gouache and oil pastels. If you follow me on Instagram, you can see most of my artworks there, where I use the aforementioned medias. So I got myself these books from an online second-hand bookstore. I always wanted to have art books. Of course, I already know a lot of the basics, especially in watercolors and gouache, example techniques or color theory. Nevertheless, I still wanted to have some books where I can really see in a structured way how to work with certain media. And also, this could just be a source of inspiration for me. Another funny fact is that I really like to be able to be super close to the book, like almost 1 mm distance from the book, so that I can see literally the technique and the details that the artist used, compared to, for example, being on Pinterest, where it is much more difficult to zoom in and look at how something has been achieved. I really hope that this will bring me a step further regarding my improvements with watercolors and gouache, and I hope it could also be a very good source of inspiration for you, or perhaps you might be interested in some of these books. I have these two books. I think I'm going to move these a little bit. So I have these two books. I didn't realize that I bought the same book because I was going through the shop, and instead of putting them in the wish list, because I really wanted them, I directly added them to the cart. And I didn't realize that I was adding the same book to the cart. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you might sometimes come across my stories where I share that I accidentally buy two paints of the same color. Happens very often with me. So this is basically the same book, however they are in different languages. So this one is in German and this one is in Dutch. So let's start with the German one. It is spiral bound inside. Ooh, here's the name of someone. So translated, this is called The Small Color Palette Flower Paintings, Techniques and Color Effects by Elisabeth Harden. So I won't go through every page of every book, because otherwise this video would take really long. I would just go through some pages just to look what is in there in general, and afterwards we are going to paint some bookmarks for those art books, and I'm going to look for inspiration in one of these books. I don't know yet which one it is going to be, but that's why we are going to go through some of them. So I see here it starts with, it is in colors. So it is coded by color. So yellow, orange, pink, purple, white, and cream. Oh, blue, green, red. I just really like, I like the, how do you call that, the way it is made compared to this one. This is spiral bound, so I'm afraid one day I will rip it off,
per accident or so. Whereas with this one, it feels a little more strong and would hold a lot of wear and tear with me. I might use this one much more often than this one because I'm just afraid I break the papers. It does look sturdy though, but yeah, I'll be using this one. I don't really go through like a certain order, I just pick what's here, basically. So next we have painting with oils from Brian Gorst. I hope I pronounced the name of the artist right, but I am not sure. But this is about oil paints, and I've been very interested into oil paints lately, but unfortunately I work in a very enclosed space without proper ventilation for oil paints, especially in winter when it gets really cold. So because of that, I haven't really considered even testing it, although I love oil painting, at least how I see it so far. An artist on Instagram suggested using water-based oil paints. However, I also made some research in that they still can be inflammable, so I just rather not at the moment, until maybe one day I get a larger space with better ventilation, then I may start with oil paints. However, I got myself this book because I find that oil painting techniques can be very well applied to gouache. And that was already it. Very interesting. And there was stuff that I actually didn't know, like the wet on wet technique. I didn't know you could do that on oil paint, so interesting. Next we have this one, the complete book of drawing from Lee Hammond. Next we have The Art of Flowers by Jack Krammer.
So I was really attracted to this book because it seems very similar to some books that are on my wish list, which are the Botanical Illustration by Walter and the Flower Color Guide by Michael Putman. But because these books are quite outside of my budget range, I found this one, so I thought, oh, it is quite similar, so that's why I got it. And compared to the other two books I mentioned before, this also seems to be more targeted to artists because it shows botanical techniques compared to the other ones that show color palettes or general collection of botanical illustration through years.
I noticed that the, I don't know how you call it, but it's gold. It's gold looking. I love it, it's so pretty. I love this book. I love it. Next we have this watercolor book from Jordi Segu and Jordi Vigay. I hope I pronounced the name of this artist right. This is just watercolor basics, techniques and motifs in art watercolor. And then I've got another one from the same author, but this time for landscapes. For the next book we have the Painting Watercolor Flowers by Pam Wissman and Christina Xenos.
Solitude.
We have still quite some books. I will try to speed it a little up because yeah, I don't know how long this video is already until now. We still have 4 books to go through, 5 inclusive. So I will just try to go a little faster. This one is Watercolor Handbook by Kate Gwynn. We move on to the next book. This one is Techniques of Painting by Ian Simpson. Basically basics of painting with watercolors, pastel, gouache and oil paintings.
What I especially like in this book is that there are multiple still life techniques and or step-by-step guides and painting examples in there. And lately I'm really into still life because I find it to be a very good type of art style that help you improve regarding, for example, where to place certain lights or shadows or how to work with values, etc.
Like, for example, oh, I'm sorry, I had the book on the half part of the camera. But like, for example, this composition, I find it just very complicated because you have people in the background, you have a cello. I suppose this is a cello, or I suppose, I'm not sure. With a cello and then a person with, yeah, this is a difficult composition for me if I want to learn lights and shadow and shapes. Same with this small painting here. So like, I find that because there is so much details in here, it is much more difficult for me to learn about light, shadows and shapes compared to still life where you just have a bottle or an apple. That's why I really like still life lately. Oh, I haven't noticed. I love this one. This composition, because I live in the north of Germany and everything here is somewhat flat. And when I take pictures which I want to reproduce in paintings, I find it always difficult because everything is flat. There is no specific mountain shape, for example, and there is no clouds behind mountains, for example. So I find it often hard to reproduce it on paper without it being super flat. I really like to see art that is portraying the landscape here in the area, because then I can learn from those artists how they place shadows and light on a flat landscape. Well, not flat landscape, but it is a flat land here. So how you do that without just a whole, like flat green painting with a flat blue sky and then you're done. Next we have the oil painting workshop 2 from Rachel Lockwood.
Next, we have this painting with watercolor paint by Charles Barlett. This book was fairly thin, that's why I lifted the book. I was quite surprised because it came with only 60 pages, and I think upon buying it I didn't check good the amount of page that it had, because usually I don't really purchase books that are under 100 pages. However, it was fairly inexpensive and it had great content, so I guess I shouldn't complain. Last but not least, we have this watercolor encyclopedia by Hazel Harrison. I think this is one of the most thick books that I've got throughout this entire haul. And as you can hear earlier already, I prefer thicker books because then I am sure that you can fit a lot of things in the book, so explanation, details, materials, introductions, examples, and hopefully a bunch of photos. Also, if you wonder why I bought so many books in so many different languages, well, that's just because some books were cheaper in some languages. So this one was also, I think, available in English, but the English version was much more expensive than the French version, so that's why I got the French version. And to be honest, I can just translate them on Google if I don't understand something, but most of the time I should understand most of the books that were here today. For the bookmark, I decided to paint some forget-me-nots based on the book of Elisabeth Harden. The paper that I'm using here is the 25% cotton, I think, or 50%, I'm not sure, but it is a Fabriano paper, hot pressed. And the colors I am using are a mix of Prussian blue and white, and for the leaves I used a mixture of margarine and green. I will leave a description of my materials down below. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you could find some source of inspiration through today's haul. And if you made it this far, thank you very much for sticking along and watching my videos. I see you next time by my next video. Bye bye!